Hi, I'm Judy Craig with Edina Realty, and today I'm joined with Paul Miller, my trusted accounting advisor, and he's with Business by Design. So I brought him in today because I really wanted to talk about one of the things that's not negotiable in life, and that's taxes. It's not a fun topic, but he has some really great things to share with us. So Paul, one of the first things I wanted to ask you about is, what are some of the deductions that people don't really even know about?
Well, a lot of times when people are looking at particular housing and buying a house, what they can do from a tax deduction standpoint really boils down to a couple buckets. I mean, number one is their mortgage interest, of course. So people are going to look at their mortgage interest as a deduction. And I think the way you'd want to interpret that really is more or less if someone's paying 4% interest, depending on their tax bracket of how much their percentage of tax, that interest might only really cost them maybe 2.5% or so.
Okay.
I feel like in a lot of ways with taxes, I know you said it's not always the best subject or the most fun subject
to talk
about, right? But the reality is I think people get confused on what taxes really even cost them. And so the idea is that if I paid for something post-tax, that dollar's been diluted down. So let's just assume for a second that I'm a typical, average homeowner. Maybe my income's $150,000, and we have some deductions, maybe a couple kids. My marginal tax rate might be, let's say, around 32%.
Right.
So the last dollars I earn are at 32%. So when I introduce a tax deduction, I'm actually reducing that income by 32 cents on the dollar. Now I can spin it the other way to people and say, if you didn't do that though, what's the premium on that? So there's a premium for something that's non-deductible. So if someone is not writing something off as a tax deduction, it's going to cost them more. So let's say someone can't deduct medical expenses. I go to the doctor and I have a $100 copay. An average taxpayer, that $100 copay probably costs them between $150 to $180.
Got it.
We need to earn that amount of money, pay taxes, and that's how we physically get the dollars to pay.
Right, got it.
So relating that back to a home purchase, if someone says, hey, this is what we pay in mortgage interest, it's actually less than that because they get to write it off on their taxes.
So if I've got someone that is a cash buyer, they might want to keep their investment in an investment earning interest, but go ahead and get a mortgage.
Right, so it's the opportunity cost of that money. So
right.
If that money was just buried in the backyard and I had a mortgage, probably not, right? So,
right. Mm-hmm.
But if I had an investment that I was earning income on that, mm-hmm. I may very well likely say, it's a good idea to get a mortgage. As a matter of fact, so about a year and a half ago, Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. So he bought a home and he had taken out $1 million of a mortgage. And because that's the maximum amount of mortgage balance you can deduct interest on.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure he didn't need to take that $1 million of mortgage out.
Right.
But he knew that $1 million, he could use it in something else and make more money than what it cost him. Okay. So when people look at mortgage interest rates or mortgage interest, you really have to understand that if I'm paying the bank 4% interest and it's a deduction, it might only really cost me about maybe 2.5% to maybe 3% is what that's really costing.
And is that the same for home equity? Like if you're purchasing a vehicle or if you've got some equity in your home that you can have a line of credit sitting there?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So let's say I have a first mortgage on my home, mm-hmm. and then I have some equity, and I'm going to get a home equity loan. Mm-hmm. Now, to make that interest deductible, the funds that I'm using on that home equity loan need to be used on the home. So if I were to take that home equity loan,
you can't go buy a boat.
Correct. I can't go buy a boat and write that interest off because technically it's not used on the home. The deductible mortgage interest has to be used either for the acquisition of the home or used on the home itself.
So if someone's buying a home that they want to do some improvements on, that's a good way to do it. And
correct.
Then pay
absolutely.
That down.
And then you'd pay that down because again, you might say that home equity line cost me, 5% interest. It's not really 5% because I'm able to write off that interest on that. Versus mm-hmm. using your cash, you might use your cash to pay for the education and mm-hmm. use the loan for the home improvements and things of that nature.
Right. And just one thing that I don't know if this has changed, but when I took out my mortgage a couple years ago, I right away at the same time got a line of credit attached using the same appraisal. Mm-hmm. because then there was no additional cost. It's a
Right.
line, and I don't pay anything for it if I don't use it.
Right. And that's a big thing, I think, for a lot of people. So let's say you do have equity in your home. The question is, and you going back to your cash buyer, if I have a home that's $300,000 and I paid for it with cash, is that a better investment to leave that money in that home, or could I take $200,000 of that and put it in something else and make more money?
Right.
That's really what the question is.
And a risk-averse
Correct.
question
Yeah,
as well.
so that a lot of it might be age demographics, what someone might be at, where they want to go with that. Another thing that progressively as people do get older, they should be looking to eliminate their mortgage. So when now someone is moving into maybe their 60s, etc., we do see a lot of people that still have a mortgage balance. And what someone would need to do as they're maybe looking at retirement, or what I kind of call quasi-retirement, they might really need to look at and say, how do I reduce my monthly expenses down? And the mortgage is a big part of that. So when someone's in an income earning and a wealth accumulation phase, the mortgage interest can be a help. But eventually you might want to get to a point to become debt-free. So when I say, hey, I'm not working anymore, earning more income, I want my monthly expenses to be as minimal as possible as well.